So let's create one program. First, let's assume one requirement for the program. Maybe expand. So I wanted to generate one sales data report or maybe purchase order data. Let me check the data first, like whatever. I think for sales orders we have only very few entries. Let me check the purchase order data. EKKO. What is EKKO?
Purchase order header table.
Purchase order header table. What is the item level table?
EKPO.
EKPO is the item level table. So the common field between EKKO and EKPO is EBLN. Yeah, we have orders with multiple items. Let's take this purchase order example. We'll generate one report on purchase orders. What is the input for this? To generate this purchase order data report, what is the input? Let me take date as one input. Date in the sense created date. Where is it? Here. Created date as one input, and we'll take material number as another input. Two inputs I am going to take. Both should be both input should accept multiple values. Okay, so date should accept multiple dates or date range, and material input should accept multiple materials as input. In this case, what is the suitable input parameter?
Select option.
Yeah, we need to take select option to pass lower value and higher value. Low. Okay. Let's assume these two are the inputs for us. By using this, we need to select the data and populate the report. Okay. Now our requirement is clear. We'll create a application. In general, how we do it in the projects and following the same steps, right? Let's assume this is your FSD. What is it? What do you mean by FSD?
Functional.
Functional specification document. Who will provide this FSD?
Basis. Functional
Basis is a system admin. Okay,
Functional.
functional consultant, right? What is this requirement? Purchase order, right? The relevant functional team might be procurement team, like SAP consultant. Okay, in S4 HANA, we calling them as SAP P2P or PTP. Procure to pay, starting from procurement of the raw materials and paying the vendors. This flow contains that. In ECC, we used to call same as material management, but in S4 HANA projects, we are referring this flow as P2P. What do you mean by P2P?
Procurement to pay.
Procurement to pay, right? It contains that complete flow. That relevant functional consultant need to provide this functional specification document. What does this functional specification document contains? What is the business requirement? High level business requirement, right? What are the tables you need to select and columns? What are the inputs? What are the mandatory inputs and what are the optional inputs? If they do not provide, we have to ask them, hey, what are the inputs you are expecting for this program, right? What are the validations we have to perform and what is the business logic? How we need to join the tables? What is the common columns we need to join, right? What is the final output they are expecting, right? All these details will be provided in a functional specification document. Sometimes they provide you a walkthrough, they'll explain in detail about the functional requirement. Once a functional specification document is completed or it is handed over to the ABAP developer, what is the next step?
Create the technical specification.
Yes, next step is creating technical specification document. Who is responsible to create?
Developer.
Developer, right? In this case, ABAP developer need to create a technical specification document. With respect to this functional specification document, we have to convert business requirements into technical things, right? TSD, technical specification document. What does this contains? Again, business requirement, we are going to refer it from the functional specification document, and technical flow of the program. What is the selection screen input? What are the selection screen parameters? What are the parameters? What are the select options? What is the validation we are applying? What is the check table of that validation, right? What is the business logic we are implementing, right? What are the tables we are going to join? What are the objects we are creating for this? Methods, function modules, tables, structures, right? You have to mention everything in the technical specification document. Okay? What is the logic you are implementing, right? Business logic. What is the business logic you are implementing, right? What are the conditions you are using, right? You need to maintain all these details in technical specification document. And few transport request number. What is the transport request you have created, right? So you need to maintain all these details along with few technical unit test cases, right? You need to maintain in the technical specification document. What is the next step after creating technical specification document?
Develop the application.
Yeah, in some projects you straight away develop the application. In other projects, there is a review process. Your lead or someone who's taking care of that module will review this technical specification document. Okay, they'll ask if any questions they have, any clarifications they need, right? They'll review it. Once it is approved, then only you are going to start the development. Okay. For example, you create a technical specification document design to develop this application using function modules. Modularize the code using function modules. If it is S4 HANA projects, are they going to accept it? If someone reviewing it, if you are trying to modularize your program using function modules, they'll definitely not
Yeah, no.
don't recommend function modules. Instead of that, they recommend you to use class methods, object oriented programming. Like these kind of suggestions they'll give, again we have to modify. In some projects we create a draft technical specification document and continue with the development. Once the development is completed, then we update the technical specification document again, right? Because sometimes whatever we mention in the technical specification document, they may not be suitable in the actual business logic. Sometimes we may need to change them. So at the end of the application development, we update the technical specification document along with some technical unit test cases. Okay, this is the process. What is the next step after technical specification document? Once it is approved,
Testing.
TUT.
no, who will develop the application? We just created TSD, that's it. Development process will begin. Here, you are going to create your program. What is the next step after development?
Testing.
Unit
Technical unit
testing.
testing. Who'll perform this technical unit testing?
Develop.
Developer. What is the next step?
Code review.
Code review. Your lead or someone in the peer or your other team member will review your code, right? What are the modularization techniques you are using? What are the select statements you are implemented? Whether they are following programming guidelines or not? The very important thing what they check in code reviews are naming standards, right? You can assign any name for internal tables, work areas, variables, but every project will follow some naming standards, right? For all global variables, we have to use GV underscore. For all local internal tables, you have to use LT underscore. For all local work areas, you have to use LS underscore. These kind of naming standards you have to follow. When you are creating a program, the program name should be in a proper naming standard. For example, this is related to P2P. Then the program name should start with ZP2P underscore and the relevant program name. So, right, structures name should use ZP2P underscore S underscore data, like that. All the naming standards they'll review, right? If there are any corrections needed, they'll recommend the corrections. Also, while you are doing the development, you have to perform ATC check and SLIN checks. I'll show you what is ATC checks and SLIN checks. These two are to make sure you are following proper programming guidelines. Right? We do ATC check and SLIN check to make sure our program is following proper programming guidelines and performance wise also it is as expected in the expected format. right? If there are any errors you see in the ATC and SLIN, you have to check, you have to fix these errors before sending it for code review, because in code review they'll check this ATC and SLIN. We'll see how to do this. Okay, this is flow of development. Once the code review is completed, what is the next step? Release the transport to which system?
QA system.
QA or testing system. The basis will import the transport to the test system once you released it. Okay, is everyone clear? Once the testing is completed, they'll plan again. They're not going to move the transport immediately to the production if it is an implementation project. Okay, we have a plan called cutover, right? We transport all the production transports created for the project at once in one single cutover. Okay, now let's assume we have our FSD and TSD. Let's continue with our development. Z, for example, P2P, PO data report. Create it. Now it's a new program, right? We're creating a new application, right? Assign a package and create your own transport request number for this application. So whatever the objects you create for this application, assign all your objects the same transport request. It's not my transport, create different transport. For example, transport request also contains proper format. Description also should contains proper format. Right? We can give any name, but in the projects we have to follow some naming standards. For example, P2P slash task 120 slash first transport of this requirement PO data report. Okay. Now what is the first step? Design your selection screen.
Sir, business requirement may contain the program may contain many functionalities, right?
I didn't get you. Can you repeat?
The application which we are developing may contain many functionalities, no, sir?
Yeah, yeah. You might have
So
multiple business requirement in the same program
the
itself.
whole team will work on how it will means the workflow. Will
Workflow in
it
the sense.
be divided among team or
See, for example, observe our requirement. What is our requirement? What is our business requirement?
we are providing input
No, just tell me the high level business requirement.
Report,
purchase order,
We are
purchase
creating
order
a
report.
purchase order report,
purchase order report.
right? We are creating a purchase order data report, which act by date and material number. We need to display the purchase order data report by using date and material as filters or inputs. This is our high level business requirement, right? Now, what are the objects you need to create here? One simple SC38 program. That's it, right?
Yes,
Yes or no?
yes.
You don't need to create data dictionary objects because it's a standard requirement. Standard tables are already available, right? You may need to create program and class methods for modularization and display it in the ALV output. Now, this requirement, how many developers need to handle this requirement? Obviously, it's only one, right? So the entire application you have to take care. According to the complexity, you are going to give the timeline, right? So in the projects, we call it as sprints, right? Typically, each sprint is 2 weeks, right? So how many sprints you need to complete this business requirement? You have to provide it, right? And you have to complete the requirement. Let's say there is very complex business logic or very complex application where you need to create one report and a different interface which sends PO data to a different system. That's altogether separate application. But business high level business requirement is same. Maybe in this case they divide two parts. Report is for one developer and interface is for another developer, right? But usually these kind of requirements you have to handle. Uh, it will be handled by individual developer, not multiple. Okay.
So altogether, once after completion of all the requirement, then only code review will happen, sir.
Yes. Once you complete your application development, once you complete your technical unit testing, then you request for the code review. So we are going to transport it to the test system only. The code review is successful. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes.
Now starts with our application development. Adding some text, title text. Okay, let's define the parameters. What are the parameters required? Two select options, right?
Purchase order.
Date and material. How to define date? Define one variable. Since it's a global variable, I'm using GV. Take the relevant data element. We need material also, right? GV underscore Matner type Matner. How to define a select option?
Select option.
Date for GV underscore date.
They are input parameters, no? CV date.
Which one?
GB date and GB matter are input parameters.
GV date and GV Matner. These, you mean this?
Yes.
Did I use parameter statement?
We are going to provide them as inputs, right? The selections.
What is the use of select options?
For a range, for mentioning multiple, providing multiple inputs. Range of,
Correct. So that's why we are creating select options, right, as input parameters.
okay.
Why we create this
Only single
variables?
parameter. Okay,
To
got it.
define the select options,
Okay.
right? So to define the select options, we need reference variable, right? So that is why we have defined it. Okay.
Okay.
There is another alternative for this without defining this. Tables, EKKO, and here instead of variable, EKKO, or we'll take okay. You can also define select options like this. First, you need to define tables, and you need to provide the reference column name here in the select option declaration. Okay, like this also you can define your select options. Okay,
Okay.
The GV matter.
sorry. Okay, now we need to pass any default inputs to the selection screen. How to pass default inputs to the selection screen? In which event we do that?
Initially,
In initialization event, we can pass any default inputs to the selection screen parameters. How to pass default values to the select option? Select option name
sign option
hyphen sign equal to, do you want to pass range, or sorry, do you want to include or exclude? I want to include. Option, what is the option? Between, I wanted to select range of values from lower to higher. Low equal to sy hyphen datum, for example minus some 80 days. Sy hyphen datum. Okay, like this you can keep on appending multiple ranges or multiple select multiple single values for the select option, right?
sign spelling.
Activate. Let's test the program. Program is not yet completed, but test the selection screen logic, whether it is working properly or not. It is working, right? It is displaying required input. Okay, what are missing? Like we need to add selection text for the input parameters. Text elements, selection text, created date, and material. Okay.
Text symbol also.
We'll create text symbol also. It will automatically assign one. Now test the program. Here it is displaying the heading, enter PO material and required inputs. Right? What is the next step? validate the selection screen inputs. So what are the mandatory inputs here and what are the optional inputs here? Let's assume date is the mandatory input and material is the optional input, right? So I'll make sure to validate the selection screen inputs. If so underscore date is initial, what we need to do? It is initial.
Print the message.
Message, sir.
Rise
Rise
the
a message.
error message.
Sir, what is difference between line selection, start of selection?
At line selection, sorry, at selection screen, not at line selection. At selection screen. What is the use of at selection screen event? To validate the selection screen inputs.
Okay.
It will trigger before executing the start of selection event, right? Before executing the business logic to validate the selection screen inputs. If there is any error in the selection screen, it will stop the process at selection screen only. Okay? We can correct the inputs and execute again, right? So this event is to validate the inputs. Enter date. Let's test the validation part. Now it won't throw any error because there is default date here. Let me try to delete it and execute. Now it should throw the error, right? So which one, for which input it should throw the error?
Date image.
Date, but both are highlighted in red color. To avoid this and to highlight only the required input field, what we need to use? At selection screen on, at selection screen on, and mention the parameter. Okay. You can use the set selection screen on for multiple parameters if you have multiple, right? You can write one more error message here so that if there is any error in the material, only that will highlight. Only that material number will highlight. Let's see that. Now execute. Since the material number is blank, only the material number will highlight. This will be disabled because there is no error in it, right? For example, I am removing this. Now execute. Now, since there is issue in the date column, only that will enable. The other will be disabled for input. So that user will be clear about what they need to correct, right? Instead of displaying all the inputs, right? By using at selection screen on. Okay, is everyone clear?
Yes.
Instead of writing all this, you can insert into a include program all of these. Now, what is the next step?
Fetch the data.
Logic.
Implement the business logic. For that, we are not going to write that business logic here. Where we need to write? We need to modularize the code, right? Using class methods. Go to SC24, create one new class for this program. Usually we refer this as helper class, right? For the application. Okay, wrapper class or helper class. Okay, ZP2P PO data Okay, create a class, save the class, save that object in the same transport request, whatever you created for the program. Now, what are the methods required in this program? If you are validating anything in that selection screen event, for example, if you are validating the material number, so add one method for validate material number and pass the material number as input and validate it and return some error or success message, right? Now, my requirement is to select the PO data, read PO data. This is my method name. What are the inputs for this method? Tell me.
Date and material.
At
Date
selection,
and material. What are these? Is it a
Selection.
parameter or select option?
Select
Select
option.
It's a
option.
select option. Always remember, structure wise there is difference between parameter and select option. Parameter contains just single value, where select option contains sign, option, low, high, four different columns it contains. Yes or no?
yes,
We cannot directly provide or pass select options to function modules or class methods. How can you do that? How can you pass? Let's see that. Let's take this as instance method with public visibility. Read PO data. To define the parameters, I am not going to create any structure, any data dictionary structure or anything. I am going to create all the structures required for importing parameters and exporting parameters within the class itself. I'm not going to create any data dictionary structures just like how we did in the function modules, right? Now, what is our input required? One input parameter for date and one other input parameter for material. Yes or no?
yes,
That should accept select options as input. Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Now, go to this types option before defining the parameters. Go to types option. If you want any attributes for PO data, define the attributes. Go to the types option here. Provide one name here. For example, ZTY underscore date. Visibility is public. Associated type. We need to create select option, right? If you don't have any range type, so go to this. You don't need to provide associated type there. Go to this direct type entry. What you can create here? Type structures. For example, create your type structure here. Types gty underscore date. Begin of gty underscore date. Please observe carefully. What does the select option contains?
Sign low.
Right.
Sign. What is the type? Single character,
Char.
right?
Yes.
Option. What is the type?
Char.
Char.
C2.
Size length 2.
Low. What we need to pass for low?
Date element.
and data
The data element of the date column.
ADT.
This one. For high, what we need to pass?
Same.
Same.
Date element.
end of gty underscore date. Right? We created one structure for select option. Now what is the next step? Select option, is it a table or work area like structure?
Table.
Whenever you use a select option, it will generate one table, select option structure table. So that we need to pass the tabular input, right? If you use this structure name in the importing parameter, right, is it going to accept tabular input?
No, sir.
For
Not
that,
really.
what we need?
We define a table.
Table type. How to create a table type? Using syntax types. For
Table
example, gty underscore t underscore date type
G-
standard table of which one?
GTY
G.
date.
Gty date. Okay. Now our table type is created, completed. Now what is the next thing we need? One more input we need, right? Material. That is also select option, right? Create Matner. Here replace with Matner. Matner. Right? Now we created type structures for input parameters. What is our output? We have to create the output parameter also, right? Export
Yes.
parameter. What is the output? For output, define one type structure. Types begin of ty or gty. What are the columns? Choose your columns as per your business requirement. What are the columns you need to display? Maintain all those columns here. EBLN, for example, company code, create a date,
So now you are selecting multiple.
Control Y. Press Control Y, then it will show this plus symbol and drag it. Okay. Control C, Control V. Vendor and the other columns from EKPO. Material, for example, short text and purchase order text and material. Okay, I'll remove this quantity and order value. I'm keeping it. Remaining things I'm removing it. Okay. This is my output structure. In function modules, what we did to return the output? Create a data dictionary structure, right? For importing parameters, exporting parameters. Here you don't need to create. You can utilize this types option. Okay. Your output structure is completed. Now, is it a single value, or are you going to return single record or tabular data?
Table.
Tablet.
Then what we need to define the exporting parameter, structure or table type?
Table.
We need a table type. Define a table type.
Sir, how can we maintain currency and quantity?
You don't need to maintain here. You're not creating a data dictionary structure, right?
Yes.
You don't need to maintain. Currency and quantity fields occurs only when you are creating tables or data dictionary structures. Okay, not this type structures. Now go back, activate this. What it is saying, length must be specified explicitly when using CPX and N in object oriented context. Where is the error? We did not mention the type space, right? Length, right? So it is saying that in object oriented context you have to mention the length of the column.
Default length is one only, right?
Default length is there, but it is not allowed in object oriented ABAP. That's what it is saying.
Okay.
You have to maintain the length explicitly. Now go back to our types. You can see here. See, it is not mandatory to provide type name and go here, right? You can also go there, go here and create your type structures. They'll automatically reflect here. Okay, your type structures and the table types, they'll reflect here. Use this as reference structures when you are defining import parameters, attributes, export parameters, tables parameters. Okay, is everyone clear? Now go to method, define the parameters. So a passing select option, right? For example, I'll define like this: IT underscore date. What type of parameter it is? Importing. What is the associated type? GTY underscore T underscore date. Okay. Importing parameter. What's the next?
Final
Need to
output.
return the output, right? ET. What type of parameter we need to select? Exporting or changing?
Export.
Exporting. Because we are not passing any PO data as input. Export. Provide the relevant table type name. Okay. Is everyone clear? Till here, defining import and export parameters.
Yes, sir.
Now go to method, create the implementation by using our importing parameters. Select what are the other columns? Listener. What are the other columns we have taken? EBLP,
Wagner,
Quantity.
quantity, and
EKKO flipper.
in line number 2.
Line number first. EKKO.
that's it, right? From EKKO. Tell me the join.
Inner
Inner join
join.
or left outer join? Which one we use in this example?
When data is mandatory from both tables, we use
You know,
inner
right?
join.
You know tables EKKO and EKPO. We are selecting the purchase order data. So which join we need to use? Which join you are
Inner,
going to use?
inner joins.
Inner join, because if there is no line item data, it won't make any sense. That's not at all a proper record, right? There is no need of selecting it. Inner join on EKPO, sorry, inner join EKPO on
EKKO,
EKKO
EBL.
PLN.
Equal to EKPO, EBLL.
do we need to create a new internal table?
No needs.
We already
Just compare your structure, whatever the columns you are selecting with the table type what you have created. If you are selecting same columns in same order, right, you can directly use that exporting parameter in the select statement, because both are in sync, right? I think we did not add this, right? If both are in same order with same names, same column names, you don't need to create a separate internal table and loop again to move it to exporting parameter, right? So you can directly use et underscore output. And what is the where condition?
EKKO.
EKKO
DAT.
DAT in
In
which one?
IT underscore
Saturday.
Date.
escapes.
And material number, right?
EKKO. Yes.
EKPO Matner in
I. Yes. Yes.
check the syntax. It is correct. So we are directly moving data to exporting parameter because both structures are matching. Whatever columns we are selecting here and this structure both are same, right? If you need to use alias names, for example, can we take this direct structure name here?
no, sir.
No, it won't
No.
because column names are not matching, right? Maybe let's try. Think it will work because it will just check for the order. What is the first column? What is the second column? As long as they are in the proper order, it won't check for the column name. It will just place first column value in the uh, first column of the structure, the second column into the second column of the structure. Okay, it won't check for this column name, right? If you only checks for the order, if the order is missing, right, then it will show type compatibility issues. Let's try this. I'm using alias name for one column. Just wanted to show you how this entire process will work. Even if you use different alias names. Now, our method is completed. What is the next step? Let's call this method in our program. What type of method it is? Instance or static?
Instance, sir.
How
Instance
to call an instance method?
by
Creating
create object.
Create a
creating object,
object first. How to create a object?
define data,
Data.
Reference to
Data. First, we need to define the object and create the object and call it. Right?
yes,
Without doing all this, we have new ABAP syntax where you can use data LO underscore OBJ or PO OBJ equal to new class name. Okay, that's it. This is how you can create the object using new ABAP syntax. Okay, in yesterday's program we created old ABAP syntax. First we defined the object and we use the create object statement to create the object and call the method. If LO underscore POOBJ is bound or is not initial, then call the method. How to call the method? Go to pattern, web object patterns, to instance. What is the class name? This one, right? PO data class. Select the method. Okay. Now pass your importing parameters. That means select option. Return the output. We need to create any structure or table type here to return the output.
Not no needs.
You can use inline declaration. It will automatically create that internal table, work area, whatever it is returning. Depends on the exporting parameter type. It will create one data object. For example, LT underscore PO data. Right? where I am calling this to call inside this. Okay, is everyone clear? SO data is not type compatible with formal parameter IT date. Both are in sync, but we have to add this for select options brackets. Okay, because the select options will work as work area as well as internal table. Yes or no? If you observe here, we append SO date. This one works as work area and internal table, both. But how can you differentiate which one is work area and which one is internal table? By adding these brackets. You can differentiate the work area and internal table. This is called header line concept, old one. Okay. So here we use in same one for work area and internal table. Check this. No errors.
Sir, in importing we did find inline declaration, right? LTP data.
Sorry, what is it?
We defined the inline declaration, sir, in importing the LTP data.
Correct, correct.
So it will by default take the reference of
Whatever the data you are selecting in the select statement, right? By default, it will generate to the reference structure, or it will here it will refer to this structure, ET output structure.
TP. Okay.
Okay, and create a copy of that internal table with the same type and same columns in the same order. Let's see one thing we have to observe here. What we have taken here, alias name, right?
Yes.
In the select statement, we have taken alias name. We are trying to place data inside the exporting parameter. But what is the exporting parameter structure? It contains EBLN as the column name, not the alias name. Now let's see which one it's going to replicate, which one it's going to create. Is it going to take EBLN or from select statement? Okay. If it created with EBLN, that means it is taking from exporting parameter structure. If it created as order number, that means it is taking from select statement structure, right? Let's execute this. I'm not going to create the ALV output. Please, you guys have to create it. ALV output. If we'll just display sample output. If LT underscore PO data is not initial, then display the output using CL demo. What is CL demo output? This is a class, static class, and display is the static method. We are going to pass the internal table. Yesterday, returning parameter did not work, right? Because we have taken that method as a static method where it uses pass by value concept, right? It will create its local memory, right? So returning parameter is not going to work in static methods. Now let's debug this. I'm keeping a breakpoint here. I'll disable the validation on material number because I want to leave it blank. If there is no value, there is no input in the material number, how it will behave? It's going to check for all materials, right? Since we are taking select option. Now execute the program. F6 created the object. It is bound. And F6, how many records we have? 111 record. Now check the structure. Created with EBLN only, right?
Yes.
Not PO data. That means it's not considering the select statement. It is considering only exporting parameter structure, right? Also, what we observed, column name is not important, right? When you are implementing the select statement here, column name is not important. The order of the column is important. Okay. For example, here in this place, if you place some quantity or currency column, then it will show type compatibility error. Okay, it won't check the column names to insert the data into internal table. It will check the just order, right? These are output. In the next class, we are going to create object oriented ALV to display this output. But you guys have to try our function module based ALV, whatever we have already completed, right? Using grid display. Display this in the output. Okay. And in the next session, we are going to create object oriented ALV for the same requirement. And we are going to work on other concepts like abstract classes, inheritance, okay, in the next session. Before that, please practice this. It is very important and mandatory if you need to work on any implementation projects, because we have to use object oriented ABAP only. Okay, that's it for today. We'll continue in the next session.